Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottanam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jamudirayat Nasvesha Bhattesya Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Uttamastoke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasa Dev, the author. By regular attendance of the class of the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, although this troublesome to the heart is almost nearly completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of God that which praised with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. We will be reading this morning from Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 2, the Lord in the Heart, text 21. Tasmat purvor antaram unnayita nirodha sapta yatanom napeksha stitva muhurtah tamakunta drishtir nirbidya mudan vishichat param gatam. Tasmat bhuvoranantaram unnayetam nirodha sapta yataton apeksha stitva muhtar tamakunta drishti nirbidya mudan vishichat param gatam. Tasma bhuvoranantaram munayeta nirodha sapta yatanon apeksha stitva muhtar tamakunta drishti nirbidya mudan vishichat param gataha. Tasma bhuvoh anantaram unayeta nirodha sapta yataton apeksha stitva muhtar tamakunta drishti Nirbetya Murtan Vishishat Param Gataha. Tasma Bhuvoranantaram Munayeta. Niruddha Sapta Yatano Napeksha. Stitva Muhurtardana Kunta Trishtir. Nirbhitam Utan Vishichat Param Gataha. Word for word translation. Tasmat, from there, Bhuvo, of the eyebrows, Antaram, in between, Unayita, should be brought in, Niruddha, by blocking, Sapta, 7, Ayatana, outlets of the life air, Anapeksha, independent of all material enjoyment, Stitva, by keeping, Muhurta, of a moment, Ardam, half, Akunta, back home, back to Godhead, Drishti, one whose aim is targeted like that, Nirbhidya, punching, Murdan, the cerebral hole, Vishrijet, should give up his body, Param, the supreme, Gataha, having gone to. Translation. Translation of Prabhupada by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Thereafter, the Bhakti Yoga should push the life air up between the eyebrows and then blocking the 7 outlets of the life air. He should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral hole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme. Purport. The process of giving up all material connection and returning home back to Godhead, the Supreme, is recommended herein. The condition is that one should be completely freed from desire for material enjoyment. There are different grades of material enjoyment in respect to the duration of life and sensual gratification. The highest plane of sensual enjoyment for the longest period of life is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 9:20. All are but material enjoyments, and one should be thoroughly convinced that he has no need of such a long duration of life, even in the Brahmaloka planet. He must return home, back to Godhead, and must not be attracted by any amount of material facilities. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that this sort of material detachment is possible to attain when one is acquainted with the supreme association of life. Param dristva nivartate. One cannot be freed from material attraction unless he has complete understanding of the nature of spiritual life. The propaganda by a certain class of impersonalists that spiritual life is void of all varieties is dangerous propaganda to mislead the living beings into becoming more and more attracted by material enjoyment. As such, persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot have any conception of the Param, the Supreme. They try to stick to the varieties of material enjoyment, although they may flatter themselves as being Brahman realized souls. Such less intelligent persons cannot have any conception of the param as mentioned in this verse, and therefore they cannot reach the supreme. The devotees have full knowledge of the spiritual world, the personality of Godhead, and his transcendental association in unlimited spiritual planets called Vaikuntha Lokas. Herein, Akuntadristihi is mentioned. Akunta and Vaikuntha convey the same import, and only one who has his aim fixed upon that spiritual world and personal association with the Godhead can give up his material connections, even while living in the material world. This param and the paramdam mentioned in several places in the Bhagavad Gita are one and the same thing. One who goes to the paramdam does not return to the material world. This freedom is not possible even by reaching the topmost loka in the material world. The live air passes through 7 openings, namely 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Generally, it passes through the mouth at the time of an ordinary man's death, but the yogi, as mentioned above, who controls the live air in his own way, generally releases the live air by puncturing the cerebral hole in the head. The yogi therefore blocks up all the above mentioned 7 openings so that the live air will naturally burst forth to the cerebral hole. This is the sure sign of a great devotee leaving the material connection. Read the verse once again. Tasmad bhuvo anantaram unayeta nirodha saptayatano napekshaha chitva muhurtartam akunta drishtir nirbitya murdan vichichat param rataha. Therefore, the Bhakti Yoga should push the live hair between the eyebrows and then blocking the 7 outlets of the live air. He should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral hole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme. Om Ajnana Timrandasya Jananjala Shanakaya Sakshurmritam Yena Tasmai Shigurve Namah Sitchitayamanopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupkadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shigo Shiyuda Padakamanam Shigum Vaishnavam Sham Shirupam Jagatatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sadimam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shri Vishakam Vitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jatpate Gopika Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaura Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabham Sutadevi Pranamama Haripriya Pancha Kalpta Visha Kripa Shinavibsha Patnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namne. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvanya Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatai Desatani. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So this is the yogi of meditation on the super soul, which is described the Lord in the heart in this chapter. That the process here described is a bona fide process, but it was a process practiced in Satya Yuga. Keteya Dayato Vishnam. So the process was of Satya Yuga was Dayato, was dhyan, meditation on Vishnu in the heart. But in that age, Satya Yuga, everyone had a much longer life than in Kali Yuga. Much longer life. And they were able to purify themselves through this process here, Astanga Yoga, for a long time. They had time, no problem, that to go for 10,000 years of purification was okay. But in Kali Yuga, we have very short lives. It won't work. That about this system, Prabhupada says, Arjuna was 1,000 times more qualified than all of us. So he could not do it, what we was. That it's hopeless. Prabhupada said maybe a handful of people in the Himalayas can do it. But it is a bona fide process. It's not a process for this age, because it's a process based on renunciation. Giving up material desires to a mechanistic way of this pranayama, that breathing exercises, and then one comes to the point of controlling these life airs. That they come to meditation, completely peaceful. If you do this pranayama and you inhale 4 seconds, then hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then that coming out of the mouth, and breathe in again through the nostrils, do the same. That in this period that you are not exhaling nor inhaling, you hold your breath, you become very peaceful inside. You feel that so it is a process, but it requires renunciation, detachment for the world. It's a kind of forceful detachment, which is going very slow, forceful detachment. Our process is different. Our process is based on attachment to Krishna, becoming attached to Krishna. And it is in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, in the purport. That because there is it is said in this verse that Yat Sankhya Papache Stanam Tat Yoger Apigamyate Ekam Sankam Sayoga Saya Pasati Sapashati. One who knows that the position reached by an analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service on the same level, sees things as they are. The last line of the Prabhupada writes, the attachment for matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. That's because by devotional service we meditate on Krishna. And as long as we are thinking of Krishna with devotion, then no new contamination can come in. That's the first thing. That it acts as a vaccine. As long as you think of Krishna, no new contamination can come in. And Krishna is antiseptic. It's antiseptic and prophylactic. Antiseptic means you become purified when you think of Krishna. It is prophylactic because it acts as a vaccine. No new contamination can come in. Yeah. So that's a much more easy process, although it is a more easy process. You engage the senses, the mind, everything in Krishna's service. And if the mind is engaged in Krishna's service, it's not engaged in sense gratification. So the technique is to do that always without interruption. And that's our training, always engaging our senses in Krishna's service. But in the purport, different destinations are pointed out that if the yogi is not completely free from material desires, because some yogis, they want to go to Satyaloka, Tapaloka, Marloka, Satyaloka. These are the higher planetary systems. And it's nearly spiritual. It's nearly the spiritual world. So some have this destination. Others have as destination the Brahmajyoti. But to go to the Akunta planets, as described here, there should be no material connection, not the least material connection. Those who enter the Brahmajyoti have still a material connection. And what is this material contamination? That they enter the Brahmajyoti. This is mentioned by Yenyerim Vindaksha Vimuktamanas Ayasta. Yeah. That's Yenyerim Vindaksha Vimuktamanas. It's Lord Brahma in the 10th canto. That Prabhupada quotes this verse so many times. That Yenyerim Vindaksha Vimuktamanas Svayasta Bhava Avisuddha Bhutaye Aruna Kachena Prampadampata Patantyadada Patantyadada. Yeah, it's prayers of the demigods to Krishna in the womb. Yenyerim van Daksha Vimuktamana Svasta Bhava Avisuddha Buddhaya Aruya Kachena Prampadam Padapatantya Donadrita Yusma Ankaya. So it speaks of those non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances. So you can practice this process. You practice this process and you are not yet a devotee. Because some transcendentalists have as aim the Brahmajyoti some here have as the aim to go to the planet of Brahma and these higher planets. Different aims. But those who enter the Brahma Jyoti, they have mostly a Brahman conception of the absolute truth. That they don't accept the Bhagavan conception, or they are ignorant about it. And therefore, because they are ignorant about it, because it said they may think themselves liberated. Vimukta maninas, in the mind they think I'm liberated. But vasasta bhava avisuddha buddhya. But avisuddha, their buddhi, their intelligence is not pure, it's impure. So their intelligence is impure because they don't understand the nature of the absolute truth. Only one aspect, Brahman. And therefore, they fall down from their position of imagined superiority. And that is the impurity, imagined superiority. They think the absolute is Brahman, and Brahman is God. So I become God. Good, huh? But they fall down from their imagined position. They come back to the material world finally. Yes. But those bona fide devotees who follow that process and who meditate on the super soul in heart, they develop love for the super soul. And what is the super soul? It's Vishnu. And Vishnu form is Narayan form. They go to Vaikuntha. That is bona fide devotees who follow this process and develop devotion for the super soul. They go to Vaikuntha. That's their destination. But our destination is not Vaikuntha of the devotees. That should not be Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is a spiritual world. We are in the material world, but beyond the material and the spiritual world is Goloka Vrindavan. And the process to go to Goloka Vrindavan is chanting the holy names of Krishna. Because that's what they all do in Goloka Vrindavan. They chant Krishna's glories constantly. When Krishna disappeared from the rasa dance, then all the gopis started to do kirtan, and they forced Krishna to come back. So this holy name is an import product from Golok. So that's what Narottam Das Thakur sings. Golokira Dham Haris. Yeah. Well, it sings, this holy name comes from Golok. And it was brought to us from Golok by Krishna himself, Lord Chaitanya. He came to bring us the holy name. So it is not that this holy name, how does this holy name come there? Where is it mentioned in the scriptures? It's mentioned in the Kali Santara Upanishad, that holy name coming from Golok. Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. That is this thing. Holokira Premadan, Harinam. That, yes, that's always interesting. We chant holy name. Krishna brings the holy name from Golok, give it to us, and we chant holy name and we go to Golok. So this is the power of the holy name. That, but it is, yeah, the love of the devotees in Golok and the love of the devotees Vaikuntha. The prema is a different quality. The love of the devotees in Golok are much more intense. But so we are following the process of chanting holy name and performing devotional service. We are not following that process, but it is the same, it's the same principle of detachment from this world by attachment to Krishna. That, and I know Guru Maharaj, he spoke on these verses, and then he spoke about, of course, to illustrate that process, how devotees go back to Goloka Vrindavan. That's mentioned by Sanatana Goswami and Brihad Bhagavatamrita. There is mentioned Gop Kumari travels to so many places in the material world. He becomes Indra, he becomes Brahma. He enters the Brahma Jyoti and meets Sadashiva there, who is doing Harinam in the Brahma Jyoti to liberate all these impersonalists who have joined, who have merged so-called with Brahman. And then he enters from there Vaikuntha, and in Vaikuntha is going to Dvarka. And in Dvarka is taken care of by all the queens of Krishna, and it's very nice. But Gop Kumar does not feel happy. He's in Vaikuntha, he does not feel happy. And Narada Muni sees that and says, yes, what's the matter? And Gop Kumar said, I'm always thinking on this coward boy. I don't know. I don't feel at ease here. And then Narada said, yes, you should go to Golok. That's your home. But he says to Gop Kumar, but to go to Golok, you must first go back to the earthly Vrindavan where he started. But he goes back to the earthly Vrindavan and continue to chant his Gopal mantra. That, constantly chanting that. Then one day he's in the forest of Vrindavan and he sees Krishna. And he starts to run after Krishna. But Krishna runs away. And he runs so quickly, he nearly can catch Krishna, and he has his shudder, but then he falls. And he falls unconscious in the Yamuna. And then when he comes to conscious again, then he feels I'm traveling very fast. He's in a spiritual viman. And he's passing and he sees all these planets where he has been before, and it's going to the Brahma Jyoti, and he sees Vaikuntha, all these planets. And then he passes Vaikuntha. And then arrives in Goloka Vrindavan. So that's the process to go to Golok. That you cannot go there from Vaikuntha. In Vaikuntha, they don't have that mode. Because when Gopkumar was in Vaikuntha, he saw Lord Narayan, 4 arms, and reminded them to Krishna. And when he saw Lord Narayan, he started to dance in ecstasy. Gopal, Gopal! And all the citizens of Vrindavan came to him and shh, shh, we don't worship Lord Narayan like this. That behave yourself. But anyway, Lord Narayan, he knew Gopkumar's heart and he took the form of Gopal for some moments. But he didn't feel at home there because the love in Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, is much more intense love. That it's so intense that one sees Krishna as one's son or one's friend. This is much more intense love. And to enter that intense love, one must be under Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya means illusion, spiritual illusion. It makes us feel that Krishna is really my son. Like Nanda Maharaj, he could not be convinced that Krishna is a supreme Lord. Yeah, he's equal to Narayan, but so we have quite a different process, a much more easy process, a process that allows us to go back to Godhead in 2-3 lifetimes. And some of us here may have gone already to some lifetimes. We don't know who are the devotees in ISKCON. Some may be quite advanced. And advanced devotees are many times not those who are in the forefront of everything and in the publicity in ISKCON. Can be very simple devotees and very advanced. They want to stay at the background. Yes. Anyway, I'll stop here. Any comments, questions?
Maharaj, I would like to ask you that I heard that for me doesn't make any sense like this story with Gopakumar is created. It's not true story.
Yeah. First, we have to understand who is Sanatana Goswami. He's a manjari in the spiritual world. So Sanatana Goswami was on the no doubt. So we need to understand the process of devotional service to understand that. Prabhupada explains that in Nectar of Instruction. He speaks about his spiritual position in verse 10, where he says, who will not be willing to serve Radha Krishna in Vrindavan in a body surcharged of spiritual energy, in a spiritual body. Now in text 8, it's explained how to go there. Chanting the holy name is a medicine that cures the jaundice. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes about the process, how to get there. First, Varanadasa, that's the first stage. One must accept the holy name as Krishna. It takes a while. And then Jalli, after that acceptance, when it comes to Smarana Vastam, remembering Krishna, which has 5 stages. Prabhupada explained these 5 stages. So in the first stage, sometimes one remembers Krishna, sometimes not. Okay. But then in the next stage, the periods that one remembers Krishna, spontaneous while chanting, becomes longer. And the periods that we forget Krishna become shorter. And then the next stage is one remembers Krishna constantly. That's liberation. And then after that, the absorption comes deeper. And then gradually, Krishna will reveal, just as Sakti, then Krishna will reveal from within the heart his beautiful form. And that then his beautiful smile, and then his qualities, his beauty, his qualities. And then one will see as Krishna is in a place, holy Dham. And one start to see also the holy Dham. And then in the next stage, one sees Krishna is not alone. Krishna is his pastimes with devotees. And then one enters the pastimes of Krishna. That's samadhi, that entering of the aprakat lila, non-manifested pastimes of Krishna. So entering the pastimes. So Sanatana Goswami, he sees the spiritual world, that whether the story is created or not is not so important. What he writes is according to scriptures, what he sees. Direct perception, pratyaksha, paranam dharmam, direct perception of the spiritual world. Therefore, it is authoritative, that it's as good as the scriptures.
Understood, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Very nice explanation.
Yeah. So that is always an aspect that depth realization of the spiritual realm, that and it's so beautifully described. This book is, my Guru Maharaj always says it's my favorite book. There's these 2 stories, that the story of Gop Kumar, and then you have the story of Narada Muni seeking the most advanced devotee. Finally, he comes to the gopis. That it's so beautiful. But when you read it, then you read also the purports of our acharyas. That like in the Gopi Pranadana has translated, these books are there at the right. The 3 books, Gopi Pranadana, Virat Bhagavatamrita. And you have our purpose of these acharyas. And all these purports confirm it is related to this, it's based, backed up with the scripture, this knowledge. That, yeah. So therefore, therefore we have also that realization of Prabhupada. Prabhupada had full realization that, but he always backed up everything with the scriptures. We see our acharyas also, Virat Bhagavatamrita, you read the commentaries, very beautiful. That because Jiva Goswami also Jiva Goswami is a disciple of Sanatana Goswami and wrote also many tikas, commentaries on everything Sanatana Goswami wrote. Sanatana Goswami has also his commentaries on the Bhagavatam. And we see Jiva Goswami, he repeats them, but goes a little deeper than that. It's so nice. That, yeah. Anyway, that's what I could say.
Thank you, Raj.
Yes.
Two questions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for explaining so deep, especially these 5 stages what you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody hears this, then it feels that it is so far, or it is very difficult to reach that level of deep love, and they can get demotivated. Oh, it's not for me because it is so deep. So what should we tell them?
The stage to become purified goes slow. Prabhupada writes Rupa Goswami writes that the slow process of devotional service. But once you come at liberation, then you have ruchi. Ruchi is like a magnet, iron to a magnet. You become very quickly attracted. And all the higher stages are not under our control. It's Krishna. But usually these higher stages are going much quicker than the first stages. Yeah. The point is to come to liberation. Therefore, Prabhupada said that there's much more to say on what you're saying. But first, this to come to that liberation, it may take 1 or 2 or 3 lifetimes. But after that, it's going very quickly. But the point is that it's good to understand what's pure devotional service. Do we want to go to Vaikuntha, or do we want pure devotional service? Without attaining pure devotional service, you cannot go to Vaikuntha. And what is this pure devotional service? It's that Krishna decides what we are going through. Learning to depend on Krishna. If Krishna wants us to remain in this world to do some service, that's his business. We are just a servant. So if we come to the level of pure devotional service, the desire to go back to the spiritual world becomes secondary. The first thing, I want to serve Krishna, and you decide, Krishna, what you do with me. If I have to suffer, I will suffer, no problem. I'm your servant. And then your suffering diminishes already when you have that mentality. So we should be more concerned with attaining the purity in our service and leave it up to Krishna. That we are not the manager. You cannot manage yourself to the spiritual world. Krishna is the manager. And we leave it up to him. That, of course, the desire to go back to the spiritual world is important. But anyway, you had another point?
Yeah. Maharaj, you mentioned that, so Maharaj, the Brahma Jyoti is Krishna's effulgence.
Yeah.
Which is spiritual.
Yeah.
So earlier I heard in the class that you mentioned that even after going to Brahma Jyoti, they are still connected to the truth.
Yeah.
Like how to understand?
Yeah. So those who go to the Brahma Jyoti are not pure. That because they have only realized that I'm not this body, that I'm spiritual. That's good, but they did not realize who they are. That they are a servant of Krishna. So, and then they have to come to the next step: is acting on the spiritual platform, is acting in devotion and service. So they are all three, but they think I'm already there. And that's the problem. So they have to come back. That it's spiritual, but it's only the realization of the sat feature of the spiritual. Sandini. And a little samvit. There no transcendental knowledge is not realized. But mostly Sandini. But to go back to the spiritual world, we must realize Ladini, love for Krishna, devotion. And for this you have to realize you have to realize that who you are. And so they have not understood their real identity. One who has not understood one's real identity has still a false ego. And the false ego is, I'm spirit, I'm God. And that's a big false ego. With false ego, you cannot go to the spiritual world. You have to come back. Okay?
Because they have false ego, then that is a material connection.
Yeah, sure. Thinking yourself God is a bit, it's not so good. That's false ego. We have a question here from Hema Gopika. Please, Hema Gopika.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev.
Yeah.
Maharaj, I have two questions, Maharaj. How about the 5 types of mukti that is specified in our scriptures? Are they also temporary destinations because they are said to be attained by the transcendentalists or the yogis? Can you please explain that a bit, Maharaj?
Yeah. So from this 5, the 5 kinds of liberation, because that's mentioned in discussion with Lord Shiva. But of these 5 kinds of liberation, the first is merging with the impersonal. A devotee does not want that, rejects that, because it's you lose temporarily your identity as a servant, and you cannot serve Krishna, so they don't want it. The other forms of liberation, living on the same planet of the Supreme Lord, of having the same form, or have the same opulence. A devotee may accept that, does not want that, but he accepts that because he can't serve Krishna in that form. So that's mentioned, but they are not interested in any of these forms of liberation, the pure devotees. They just want to serve Krishna. And that they are not asking that from Krishna. They do not desire that. But if Krishna gives him, then they accept. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj. So are these muktis are also temporary, Maharaj?
Only the first one, merging with the absolute.
I see.
The other
Okay.
eternal.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
And then the second question, Maharaj, is it okay if I ask?
Yeah, sure.
So you mentioned purity in service has to be obtained. This is our training. So what does it actually mean, purity in service? How do we train ourselves to get to that platform, Maharaj?
Yeah, so that's an important question. of course, we have first to understand what's pure devotional service. And that's explained in so many ways in the Bhagavatam. Savaipam saparodamo yatobhakti adoksha ahait kapatiyata yatma shubhashidati. The highest occupation for mankind is pure devotional service to adoksha, to the one who cannot be perceived by the senses, the Supreme Lord. And that must have two qualities, must be uninterrupted and without material motivation. That's important. And then if one serves in that way, even if when the heart is impure, you feel happy and satisfied in your devotional service. Yatma Shubhashidati. That, but there you have that point for unmotivated. That is further explained by Rupa Goswami in his verse Anya Bilasta Sunyam Janaka Matanavtam Anakuyena Krishna no Silnam Bhaktir Uttama. Pure devotional service is rendered to Krishna favorably, to please Krishna without any motivation for liberation, no, not wanting liberation, and without any material desire. That so it means, and Narada Muni explained the same thing in another way. He says that yes, this is mentioned in Nectar of Devotion, that the verses, yeah. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat parat prananirmalam rishkena rishkesha sevanam bhakti uttama. Pure devotional service is rendered without any kind of false ego. That no upadis. Upadis are false ego is thinking oneself the enjoyer. And material means without material desires, because material desires means you have false ego. That and it is meant to only to please the transcendental senses of the Supreme Lord, and that is pure devotional service. So through these definitions, we understand this theoretically, but then to realize really what it means in practice, we need the example of the pure devotees that and live in their association. If we read Prabhupada's books, we associate with Prabhupada. That we hear from advanced devotees, and yeah. Anyway, if you come to that point of pure devotional service, whether you are in the material world or the spiritual world, it doesn't matter. You are always happy. That because your goal is right. That yeah, just in short, in a few words. That does that help in my group?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so very much, Maharaj.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Shantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Bhakti Prabhu Maharaj ki